Daddy, I know you're making new trees, but maybe can you make them more colorful because everything looks green and gray.
Yeah, you're right. Everything is green and gray, isn't it?
Yeah.
Alright, I guess I'll make some with a little bit of color. Okay?
Okay.
So, in the last episode, we made our wire trees. So now we have to put some sort of flocking on top of them. So, I'm sure everybody has their favorite way of doing it. This is my favorite way that I picked out. I really like the look of the moss on the trees, but I don't think moss is the best choice because it gets very brittle, it crumples up, dries out. I've tried preserving it, still don't like it. The one thing that I found to come close in texture of that is polyfiber. Now, there's different types of polyfiber. This is a very loose polyfiber that's inside the pillows, like couch pillows. I got this because I have some crazy dogs and they ripped up a bunch of pillows, so I have enough of supply of this polyfiber that'll last me 2 lifetimes. With that said, I also have an endless supply of cut up foam. And again, I got this because the dogs are nuts and destroyed their doggy beds. And instead of throwing it out, I have an endless supply of cut up foam. So with the cut up foam and the polyfiber, I experimented with different color types and how colors reacted with each of those mediums. And the polyfiber is kind of tricky because it looks like you're not really dyeing the polyfiber, but you're more or less coloring the polyfiber. So it's a very tough medium. But what I did was I made a whole bunch of these little color swatches. So I did my experiment with the paints, and then on a card I wrote down each of the paints that I used. I mean, I don't think the ratios matter as much because you can achieve whatever color. It was more important to get that kind of a dense color. So I did that with a lot of different color matching and a lot of different brands of coloring. And I did the same with the ground up. I took the foam and I ground that up, and I did the same thing. I made color swatches, different colors, and what colors it took to make that. And I had a lot of really good results. Now, I ground up all of this stuff myself, and I used old universal meat grinders. This one here is a number 2, and this one is a number 3. So you could see the size difference in the two of these. This one is a pretty big upgrade from this one, so it can handle a lot of thicker stuff. So I guess logically number 1 would be over here and be even smaller. I would think that would be anything good because it's tough to grind up this stuff even with the big one. But it works well. And a lot of people say that it's cheaper to buy the stuff ground up, which I have plenty of it back there. But I have this stuff, instead of throwing it out, I have more control over it. Different sizes, endless amount of colors that I can do, because I do want to do autumn trees instead of just having all green trees, like my daughter pointed out. And I got a lot of trees to do for my forest. And I also started putting washers on the bottom of the trees. I hot glued them on. One gives a little bit more weight and a lot more stability. So here's a finished tree, almost finished. It has the thing on there. I'll paint that and do whatever, but as you can see with the polyfiber on there, and flocking polyfiber and flocking is on there. It does a good representation to me, like the moss. And then what I did notice is I could just take spray can and just do little sprays to get the different colors. Instead of one uniform color, I can get multicolors. So there you have it. Then of course glue it together, paint it up how you like it, and then you can have endless amount of trees. You can either buy the armatures like these, or you can make the armatures like we did in the last video with wire, which really yield, I think, really good looking trees. Especially if there's something in particular you're looking for in a size or a shape. The bought trees are kind of uniform, but these trees that you make yourself, you can really come up with really good ideas for them. Alright, so I have a lot of trees to make, and I better get going. So, I'll see you when I'm finished.
Well, first thing I do is I start grinding. Grinding and grinding and grinding. And more grinding. And I'll dye the grindings the same color as the trees. And then I'll take 1/2-inch washers, I believe they are, and glue them to the bottom of the trees to give more weight and stability, because they knock over really easy if you don't. I paint them brown so they don't look all silver. And then I use paint thinner, 1 part paint thinner, 1 part glue, and then 1/4 part paint, whatever color it is, the green or the red or the orange or the yellow. I mix that up very thoroughly, and then I will add the polyfiber, and then I make a mess. I probably really should wear gloves, but oh well. And then I keep mashing it so the color goes all the way through, because it doesn't really dye the polyfiber, it more like paints it. Squeeze out the extra, let it dry, and when it's dry, I rip it up and shape it to whatever looks good. And the more you pull out, the less dense the tree will be. Then I'll keep playing around with this until it looks halfway decent. And I don't even really have to glue them in place, because they'll stay pretty good, especially with all the spray glue and everything that I'll put on there to keep the flocking on. So I just take the time, tree by tree, till it looks like a tree. And then I'll spray glue them and flock them. Again, the ground up foam, I color the same way as the polyfiber with the color that whatever I'm looking for. It works out pretty good. Gives it texture. And then I'll just go in and give it a couple sprays of spray paint. Gives it more depth in the coloring. You get the darks and the lights all together.
Well, there you go. Trees. Lots of trees. I'm glad I did the colors, because it adds a little bit more depth to the table instead of just all green. It would have been easier just to do green, but I think it looks better this way. They were a lot of work, but I think they look great. So now I have a forest. Now I could paint the tree ants now, and I think they'll be happy. I know I'm happy with them. So go and make some trees. See you next time.